America has faced a long, serious challenge with obesity.
There are 110 million with obesity. It's projected in 5 years there'll be 1 billion people on the planet who have obesity.
Obesity rates in the United States have gotten exponentially worse in the last couple of decades. As Americans have become more sedentary, our portion sizes for meals have gotten bigger. The snacking industry in the United States is huge.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, nearly half of the adults in the United States are considered obese.
Obesity is probably the most important chronic disease afflicting Americans right now.
I think that people think that obesity is just a matter of calories in and calories out. You're judged based upon just how much you eat and how much you burn.
Not only do you get the diabetes, the hypertension, the high cholesterol, the heart disease, the heart failure, the sleep apnea, arthritis, mood disorders, the list goes on and on.
In 2023 alone, obesity and extra weight cost American businesses and workers more than $425 billion. That's not all for medical bills. We're talking about missed work, disability claims, and a big drop in productivity.
Lack of physical activity and food intake is at its core. 40% of all cancers have a high correlation to obesity.
But what's fueling this epidemic?
We have genetics, development, environment, and behavior all playing a large role.
And how did we get here?
Honestly, doctors are still trying to figure out exactly what happened to make obesity rates skyrocket the way that they have.
I'm David Rubenstein. For nearly a decade, I've interviewed some of the most interesting and powerful people in the world. Presidents, athletes, CEOs, entrepreneurs. I talk to them about their careers and their lives. Inevitably, we almost always end up talking about how they're living and how much they think about trying to live better. We're all trying to make sense of the mountain of new information available and the ambitious efforts underway to tackle the biggest health obstacles. On longevity, come with me as I talk with the leading experts in science and medicine and ask them the questions we all have: how to be healthier and ultimately how to live longer. So is it my impression, or am I wrong, that people seem to be getting heavier in the United States at least, and obesity is a big problem these days health-wise?
Obesity is probably the most important chronic disease afflicting Americans right now. The prevalence of obesity continues to increase unabated.
What is the reason for this?
Research is showing is that the reason people develop obesity is not just that there are too many calories, that we take for given, but that what fattening food does is to damage the circuitry in the brain that regulates body weight, so that your brain becomes resistant to the hormones that control weight. So your stomach, your intestine, your fat cells are sending hormones to your brain, trying to tell your brain how much you've eaten and how much fat is stored. But the circuitry in the brain, in the hypothalamus and other parts of the brain, is not responding properly. And as a result, your weight keeps going up, up, up. And that pulls your appetite.
Our portion sizes for meals have gotten bigger. Snacking, obviously the snacking industry in the United States is huge, and snacking plays a role in this too. And over that time, BMI has gone up for Americans.
For more than a century, body mass index, or BMI, has been a metric used to define obesity. It compares weight to height. If your BMI is 30 or higher, that is considered obese, while 25 to 30 is overweight. Earlier this year, the Lancet Commission announced a major shift in the definition of obesity, considering factors beyond BMI and dividing it into preclinical and clinical categories.
In January of 2025, we sought to give a better solution to the story. We wanted to use your overall health to determine how one's weight status should be judged. When we look at your waist circumference, we're getting around your belly button, for example, and we're determining if you have visceral adiposity. If you carry fat around your organs, that predisposes you to things like fatty liver, or we've rechanged that name to metabolic associated steatotic liver disease, or predisposes you to things like heart attacks and strokes. So we'd rather look at that gives a more holistic measure than just telling you if your height and weight contributes to disease. Let's do a deeper dive and look at what other health metrics we have available. What is the blood pressure telling us? What is the cholesterol panel telling us?
What percentage of people in the United States are overweight, would you say?
The numbers right now are that the high 30s, 38 to 40% have obesity, 35% are overweight. And if you look at it, obesity keeps going up, up, up. People are getting pushed right through overweight into obesity and to higher levels of obesity.
If you are 35% or so are overweight and 35 to 38% are obese, does that mean that together more than 70% of the people in the United States are overweight?
That's correct.
If you look at the epidemiology charts, it really seems to have started in the 60s. Growth in overweight and obesity in the country, and really accelerated in the 80s and 90s. So what are the reasons? How we live certainly is one of them, and energy expenditure has to be part of the story. What we eat, though, is probably a more important reason, not just the quantity, which has risen modestly through that period of time, but actually what's in our food has changed. And I think that's also attributed to this.
So when I was growing up, there were various diets my parents always tried. They were, first they started Weight Watchers, and then they had the Scarsdale diet, the Atkins diet, the Mediterranean diet, the water diet. Any of those diets ever work?
Diets work in the short term. The reason they don't work long term is because there is a resistance mechanism to stop you from starving to death. So your body has built-in circuitry and hormonal changes that occur when you lose weight that respond out of proportion to the amount of weight that's lost. And that guarantees failure over a period of time.
So in recent years, to deal with the overweight problem, surgeons came up with bariatric surgery. Is that working? People still do that, or basically people have gone to something else?
Bariatric surgery has been the gold standard for the treatment of severe obesity. It's not for someone who's overweight, it's not for someone with lower levels of obesity, but for people with severe obesity, and particularly those who have complications, bariatric surgery can be life-saving. It's certainly life-changing.
I actually do think for patients with severe obesity, using it in combination with GLP-1 medications is by far the most effective treatment tool. So for those patients, I would recommend sending them for still surgical intervention. After they reach their nadir or reach a point of stability, then I usually add on GLP-1, and so their weight will come down and stabilize here. And then I add on a GLP-1 and get additional weight loss. So these patients are able to achieve 30, 40, 50, and even 60% total body weight loss with the addition of a GLP-1 receptor agonist to their regimen.
Today, a new class of medications is changing lives. Known as GLP-1s, these drugs were originally developed for diabetes, but they've shown remarkable promise in helping people lose weight and keep it off.
Is that the solution for all of the obesity problems?
It's an incredible medication, incredible advance, because there were many GLP-1 stimulating compounds before. They treated diabetes well, but they didn't do much for weight. Semaglutide was the first one that really broke through to produce 15% weight loss.
GLP-1 medications like Eli Lilly's Zepbound and Novo Nordisk's Wegovy are helping people lose significant weight. But how do they actually work? GLP-1s work by injecting a pen to your stomach. They mimic the effects of the naturally occurring hormone GLP-1 in the body. After we eat, our gut sends GLP-1 to the brain. It tells us we're full, slows digestion, and helps control blood sugar. But for people who are suffering with obesity, that signal doesn't always work well.
What we're doing is boosting some of those signals with these medications. They're boosting the signal that you're full, boosting the signal that you no longer want to eat more, and boosting signals that you should absorb nutrients that you've consumed. And so ours does that with two different hormones, one called GLP-1, a new one called GIP. Ozempic or semaglutide just uses GLP-1.
But what the drug does is what? It tells your body you're full when you're maybe not as full as you used to be?
It tells your body you're full, and it does that to the brain, to sense of satiety. Probably, we've learned over time, our sense of fullness becomes conditional. So as people eat more habitually, that signal kicks in later and later.
The result? Fewer calories in, less hunger, more control. Many patients report not obsessing over food for the first time in years. On average, patients lose 15 to 20% of their body weight. Some see improvements in blood pressure, heart health, and even lifespan. While effective, these medications require a lifelong commitment and can have side effects.
These drugs are known to cause nausea, vomiting, other abdominal and stomach discomfort, and that can be a real problem for some patients. Even though it doesn't sound like a big deal, for some patients it's just too much and they end up dropping off of the drugs. And that's something that drug makers are trying to work on right now, is developing drugs that have potentially less side effects than the ones that are currently on the market.
The benefits are temporary and can be lost if the medication is stopped.
So for patients that are responders, this is meant to be a long-term solution. So they need to stay on the medicine to retain the benefit for the agents. You do not come off the medication. If you do come off the therapy, you will regain the weight, and any benefits that you gleaned while on the medication will be lost.
Today, there's a new weight loss pill, and there's no shot required. Eli Lilly says its experimental drug helped patients lose an average of 16 pounds over 40 weeks in a company-funded study. That's nearly 8% of their body weight, and they reported no side effects in a clinical trial. Lilly expects to launch the pill next year.
They have been working on a pill called orforglipron that is in late-stage studies right now, with results expected by the end of the year. So that will be a big breakthrough for the obesity medicine field, because right now the drugs that are on the market are shots. And so having a pill that's easier to take and potentially easier for them to manufacture is going to really open the door to new possibilities and potentially more patients.
They're less expensive to make, they're easier to absorb, they don't have to be refrigerated, and so I think it's going to be a lot easier to treat obesity using these kinds of compounds.
Calling something fast food, is that unfair?
That kind of food shocks the weight-regulating circuitry in a way that makes it resistant to the hormones that control body weight.
Heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular conditions, breathing issues. Obesity is linked to more than 200 chronic illnesses, a staggering toll on the body. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health say moderate obesity can shorten a person's life by a few years. But for those with severe obesity, a body mass index of 40 or higher, life expectancy could drop by as much as 14 years. And the burden of obesity doesn't fall equally on everyone.
For those that have greater economic means, we're able to help them with their weight status in ways for those that have lower socioeconomic position we're not able to. Obesity disproportionately affects racial and ethnic minority communities, those of lower socioeconomic position, immigrant communities. Despite this, these are the patients less likely to receive a diagnosis of obesity.
A study published last fall found that counties with greater income inequality also experience higher obesity rates. Take Kentucky. With a low median household income and a high poverty rate, it leads the nation in the use of GLP-1 weight loss drugs. A Bloomberg News report drilled down into the details.
So last year, we really wanted to see what the real-world impacts of these weight loss drugs were on people in the United States. And so we did an exclusive data analysis with our data team here at Bloomberg to find the area in the United States that had the highest concentration of people that were on these drugs. And what our analysis and our data showed us was that it was this area of Kentucky called Bowling Green. So it's not the #1 place, but it has one of the highest concentration of weight loss drug users in the US.
The most popular drug in America next to aspirin seems to be GLP-1 drugs. Everybody seems to be on them. Do you reimburse 100% for those?
We as an organization, we cover it for insulin-dependent diabetics. We bring it as a choice to employers. About 50% of large employers have chosen to cover it for weight management. As you go down, a smaller percentage of small employers do. We need to align the incentives more so based on the outcome. There's up to 50% of individuals who go on to GLP-1s for weight management who stop taking the drug within 12 to 14 months. That's a bad outcome. Someone goes on the drug, someone goes off the drug. While they're on the drug, if they lose weight, they lose muscle mass and fat. If they've changed nothing and go off the drug, they regain weight. They're going to regain fat, no muscle mass. The person 14 months later is less healthy 14 months later than they were when they started the journey.
So today, if somebody is very overweight, generally a doctor like you would probably prescribe one of these GLP-1 drugs depending on their circumstances and so forth. Is there anything better than that that's going to come along?
Well, first of all, we don't just prescribe medication for everybody who walks in the door. We recommend dietary intervention. We have different diets for people with different preferences. So one of the things we've learned is that the best diet is the diet the patient likes the best, the one they think they can best accommodate their lifestyle to. So we do that in every patient. We recommend physical activity. In New York, everyone's got a gym, or we recommend walking. So those are the cornerstone of treatment.
But as a general rule of thumb, calling something fast food, going to a fast food place, is not generally a great idea because that fast food has lots of things in it that make you gain weight. Is that unfair to say that?
It's available fast. It's a tremendous number of calories packed into a small space. So that's what is called ultra-processed food. Nutrients are stripped out, fiber is stripped out. All that's left are the calories. And that kind of food, we believe, shocks the weight-regulating circuitry in a way that makes it resistant to the hormones that control body weight.
And I have observed over the years that a lot of people that I think are overweight or even obese seem to be consuming enormous amounts of diet soda every day. Why are these people who are overweight not getting the benefit of diet sodas, or diet sodas really aren't making them lose weight?
So it's a great question, because you would think if someone switched from regular soda to diet soda, that's 140 calories for a can that you're just taking right off the top. So we have seen people lose weight in certain situations, but in some cases they do not, I would say they replace the calories in another way, and they're doing it as a preventive strategy that might be helpful. But once obesity is established, it's very difficult to push someone's weight down. And just switching over to diet soda, I think it could help, but I don't think it's going to do the whole job for the average person.
In the end, do you think that that sodas, even diet sodas, are not all that healthy for you?
So intensely sweet compounds, whether it's juice or soda, will tend to make you want sweeter things. So that may be how this happens.
Now, it seems like the weight has gone up in Americans as we've introduced more so-called low-fat food. Is low-fat food really a good thing for you?
For some people, it is. It's a very good thing. But the problem with low-fat food that we see on the shelf is that it's high carbohydrate food. So if you take out the fat, you need to add something else to try to increase the palatability, to make it as palatable as possible. So by making it high in carbohydrate and low in fat, what you're doing is making it absorb, making the carbohydrate absorb more rapidly. And that may be part of the problem that stresses your brain, stresses your pancreas, and ultimately leads to this problem. So it may be that low-fat foods are not as good, and it may be that a balance of macronutrients is really what we're looking for.
We as a community here in the U.S. should be doing a better job of ensuring coverage. These patients receive the proper diagnosis, treatment, and receive no bias and stigma.
In a world where GLP-1s and new weight loss pills are reshaping how we think about health, an important question remains: does exercise still matter? Experts say yes, especially if you're on these medications.
Exercise is critical if you're taking a GLP-1. Number one, it will prevent the loss of lean mass or muscle mass, which has been shown to be a problem, especially in older people who take these compounds.
One of the key things I'm always emphasizing with my patients is getting in at least 30 minutes of strength training every other day. Not 1 pound weights. 1 pound weights are not heavy enough. I need volume.
So I think that the key to long-term maintenance with GLP-1s will be regular physical activity of various types and maybe intermittent use of the GLP-1, GIP-GLP-1 combinations.
So today, are you confident that we can, with GLP-1 drugs, actually conquer and overcome the obesity problem?
I think this is the beginning of control of body weight, in much the same way that blood pressure was controlled over the years. We're having unprecedented success in treating patients now with the older medicines and the new generation of medicines. If you look at the earlier generation of medical treatments, we were able to get 2/3 of people to lose 5% or more of their body weight. With the latest generation, semaglutide and tirzepatide, we're getting 90% or 95%.
Be healthy and to live a long life, healthy life. What is the best thing to do?
The data tells us that in the United States, if we measure it through traditional health measures, about 80% of all healthcare costs tie to lifestyles and behaviors. Are you physically active or not? Cardiovascular fitness is important. It means 30 minutes or more of brisk exercise 4 to 5 days a week, and then food intake. Is it healthy and moderate or not? Then you add the vitality dimensions around sense of community, sense of purpose, sense of belonging, spiritual health that correlate to longevity. Without the physical health, longevity is not possible. Without the other dimensions and just physical health, longevity is usually impeded as well.
So diet and exercise will never just be eliminated. I think we have to realize that we have to still look at diet quality. We still need lean protein and a lot of protein on board if you're going to be on a GLP-1. We need whole grains, we need fruits, vegetables, bean, legumes, lentils. Those need to be a major part of anyone's lifestyle.
Come back to lifestyles, right? Lack of physical activity and food intake is at its core. We can look at countries around the globe. Take China as an example. You would think the 12-year-old in Beijing would be healthier than the 12-year-old in a rural location. Actually not the case. The 12-year-old in Beijing has, on average, eroding health status because there's a more westernized diet and a more sedentary lifestyle.
So unfortunately, obesity is prevalent everywhere. And so when we talk about it, we seem to hyper-focus on the United States, not recognizing that we are ranked not as poorly as we think we might. And I think that we as a medical community need to do better, but we as a community here in the U.S. should be doing a better job of ensuring coverage in addition to ensuring that these patients receive the proper diagnosis, treatment, and receive no bias and stigma.
There are 110 million with obesity. It's projected in 5 years there'll be 1 billion people on the planet who have obesity. And it's going to become a much bigger problem in the developing world than it ever has been in America, partly because the rate of growth of obesity in India and China is much faster than we experienced, and populations that are non-Caucasians, particularly South Asians, appear to be much more susceptible to chronic disease at lower weights. So we have a lot of work to do to make the biggest impact we can.
I'm David Rubenstein. This is Bloomberg.